What is up, YouTube? I'm GOAT74 here, bringing you guys week 3 of the PTL. This week we are taking on Coach Jack Gray, or Gravy, whatever you want to call him, coach of the Vancouver Titangs. We're going to this game with a 2-0 record, while my opponent is going to this game with a 1-1 record. Now, my opponent today is a very special person. He is actually the commissioner of the entire league, so I think it's really cool we were able to face him so early in the season. I've reiterated this a billion times. I'm going to say it again. Jack, we lost to him in the ABC, and hopefully we can pick up a win against him this week because we're 0-1 currently against him. Picking up a win would be really nice. Before I go any further into the video, I want to let it be known that school has started, so I do apologize if I sound a little bit tired. I have basically no free time on Tuesdays through Thursdays, and even Monday's not that free, so it's really hard to find time to battle, record, and do all this stuff on the weekend, so I apologize for that. But anyway, on to the actual matchup now. Oh, and I'm also bulk recording some of these, so it's definitely going to be even more scuffed then. But on to the matchup. Our matchup is actually pretty solid. Some of his offensive threats are a little bit scary, and I do have to deal with them accordingly. But if I deal with them, then I feel like this matchup's going to go well overall. It just does suck because Jack's a really good battler, so I'm sure he'll figure that out and prep. But you guys don't know his team yet, and now I'm going to break down his team. My opponent Jack this week has a team of Kyurem, Corviknight, Gengar, Arachnid, Virizion, Colossal, Alolan Raichu, Mudsdale, Pangoro, and Mr. Mime. Now I expect him to consist of Kyurem, Corviknight, Gengar, Arachnid, Colossal, and Mudsdale. He could bring Pangoro, he could also bring the Raichu, but I'm pretty set on these 6 overall. New mons he has on his team are the Corviknight and Colossal, which are not that big of a deal to deal with considering Rotom Wash just completely shuts both of them down. So I'm not that worried about his new mons overall. Things that are scary on his team, though, are Gengar and the Kyurem, especially Gengar. If he brings a Scarf one, that could be a bit of a problem, because I don't have too many good switch-ins to Gengar overall, and my offense, while it does deal with it nicely, if it's Scarf, it becomes a little bit harder to deal with. So I definitely have to watch out for that. And Kyurem, something like Specs or DD Kyurem could be a little bit scary, just because if he boosts up too much, he could break through my team that way. And those are really the biggest 2 threats on his team. I don't really see anything else too threatening. Mudsdale could be a little bit annoying because some tech Mudsdale gets could do possible work against my team. But outside of that, nothing on his team is an immediate threat to mine, which is pretty nice overall. The good thing is here in this matchup is that my Rhyperior looks very good because the only thing Rhyperior doesn't really break through is the Mudsdale and the Corviknight. Mudsdale gets shipped down pretty easily, and while Corviknight is a solid answer, I'm expecting him to be like the pivot set, and as I break down my Rhyperior more, I'll get to that later. I am a weakness policy set, so I'm not too worried about it as long as he procs the weakness policy. I think my Rhyperior is going to have a really solid matchup overall, and that's why I feel like this matchup's not that bad. But that's basically the rundown of his team. The team I am rocking out with this week, it consists of Cinderace, Rotom Wash, Galarian Weezing, Silvally Steel, Golisopod, and Rhyperior. Making its 3rd appearance of the season is going to be the Cinderace to start us off. Cinderace is holding the heavy-duty boots with the Blaze ability, moves being a Flare Blitz, U-Turn, Low Kick, and Sucker Punch. Just like last week, this is going to be a good offensive pivot this week as he does have some walls to this thing like the Colossal and the Mudsdale respectively. But outside of that, Cinderace is just really good, and I can U-Turn out on those and then get in my other mons to deal with them effectively later. Flare Blitz over Powerball because I don't want him PP stalling out my Powerballs with Pressure Corviknight and Substitute just in case. So Flare Blitz is there for that. I do have to be careful of Recoil, but overall I feel like health on the Cinderace isn't going to be too important. I'll Sucker Punch for the Scarf Gengar because that is kind of a threat against my team, so I can beat it down that way, as well as a few other things like the Raichu. It doesn't like Sucker Punch either. The good thing about Cinderace is that I'm faster than his entire team barring Scarf, so if I lose Cinderace to a Mon, I'll know it's Scarf for the most part. So that's pretty cool. And then I just threw on Low Kick. I didn't really need core change this week, as I'll explain a little bit later. But Low Kick is just to deal with Colossal if it's low enough, and then Kyurem it does a lot too as well. And that's basically just a quick rundown of Cinderace. It's going to be a good offensive pivot this week. Second up on the team, we have Rotom Wash. Rotom Wash is holding the leftovers. This is a very physically bulky Rotom with a standard moveset of Volt Switch, Thunderbolt, Hydro Pump, and Will-O-Wisp. Electric coverage and water coverage is really good against my opponent this week. The only 2 things that switch into it are Kyurem and Virizion, and burning either of those is a win in my book. The thing that I don't need core change for is because Rotom beats all 3 of his hazard setters, being Arachnid, Colossal, and Mudsdale. So if he wants to set up a hazard, he's gonna have to pay the price for it because I can just send out Rotom. Just like on the offensive spectrum, on the defensive spectrum, Rotom is a really good pivot overall. It stops almost all of his physical walls completely. So that is pretty cool. There's not much that can touch me on the physical side with this thing. And that's why I feel like Rotom's going to put in a lot of work this week. It's also another way to deal with Corviknight, because Corviknight could be a little bit annoying, but with Cinderace and Rotom, it can only be so bad. But that's going to be Rotom Wash. Third up, another making its third appearance as well is Galarian Weezing. Galarian Weezing is holding the Black Sludge with the Levitate ability this week, also physically defensive. Moves being Strange Steam, Thunderbolt, Will-O-Wisp, and Defog. Defog is if I have to get rid of the hazards. Since I have boots on the Cinderace, I don't really fear hazards too much because my team isn't really too weak to them. Maybe Golisopod is, but outside of that, not that scary. Will-O-Wisp, again, burning things on his team is very effective because a lot of his team is physically oriented. And the reason this is physically bulky in general is because the stuff I mentioned like Virizion and Kyurem, in which Rotom can't really deal with, Weezing's able to deal with them, as well as the Pangoro better. And that's why I feel like Weezing had to be physically defensive as well. All his physically defensive mons are completely shut down by either Weezing or Rotom respectively. And I feel like this core is gonna have he's gonna have a hard time breaking it if he brings a physically based team, not a specially based team. And then I just have Thunderbolt for Corviknight just to hit it with something. That is going to be Weezing. Fourth up, we have our special switch in. We have Silvally Steel. This is a very specially defensive Silvally Steel with Parting Shot, Flash Cannon, Flamethrower, and Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball is to make sure I can hit Gengar and Mr. Mime for a decent amount of damage, even though Flash Cannon does the same thing. Flamethrower for the Corviknight, because a Corviknight without Body Press is not doing anything to me. And then Parting Shot just for general momentum overall. This is a little bit scary because if he brings like Gengar, Kyurem, and Alolan Raichu, then Silvally Steel could be overwhelmed. And I'm going to have to find a way to deal with one of those in another way. But outside, I feel like he's going to bring more of a physically oriented team in the end. And then Silvally's fine just to deal with whatever special attacker he brings. And then Flash Cannon is just pretty smackable against my opponent overall. He does have Mudsdale, which takes hits pretty well. But at least I can Parting Shot out. And then, Rotom, as I just mentioned. And even Weezing, because Weezing actually has Levitate as well. But that is the Silvally Steel set. Moving on to a more offensive mon, we have Golisopod. Golisopod is holding the Insect Plate with Inanimate Nature this week, with First Impression, Leech Seed, Liquidation, and Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch over Aqua Jet, again for the Gengar, because that thing is a little bit scary overall. And Golisopod is just really good. The First Impression priority is really nice. Corviknight is sitting right there, but as long as Rotom is around, it's not that scary. I apologize, I had the burp there. Raichu just gets dismantled by First Impression. Virizion doesn't like it. Even Araquanid doesn't like it. A lot of his team just doesn't appreciate this mon whatsoever. And he has a really hard time switching into it. And if I can force out the Corviknight, that just helps me out a lot more. And that's why I brought the Golisopod in the end here. So, yep, that's the Pokemon number 5. And then finally, we have our win con of the week. We have Rhyperior. Rhyperior is holding the weakness policy with Rock Polish, Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Fire Punch with a whack EV investment. This is meant to just Rock Polish in front of whatever and then sweep his team. His team is really weak to Rock and Ground combined, and then stuff like Virizion and Corviknight get hit by Fire Punch. So right there, I can cover his entire team, except for Mudsdale. But Mudsdale is, I'm assuming, is going to be a switch into like Cinderace if Colossal doesn't come. So at least that way, I can maybe chip it down with Cinderace and then kill it with Rhyperior. I do need the weakness policy to proc in order to beat Corviknight 1v1, because Fire Punch to a max defensive one does like 35%. But if weakness policy is proc, it'll do like 60 to 70. I think that's too much of a Corviknight to handle. But outside of that, then Rhyperior just runs ham. I do have to be careful of Scarfers, because at +2, I do not outspeed some Scarfers on his team. Gotta watch out for that, but outside of that, Rhyperior is just looking really primed to win. And since Rhyperior is so damn bulky, its weakness policy can be procced by a lot of different things. Even Virizion, too, I think. I think a Leaf Blade doesn't knock me out. I could be wrong. But that is going to be the rundown of my team. I just talk nonstop, but I've been trying to record this forever, and I just keep getting interrupted. So hopefully this take stays in. We're going to head over to the Pokemon Showdown now, and we're going to watch the battle. Alright, we are here on Pokemon Showdown, and my opponent did not bring the Colossal, but did bring the Virizion. That's fine, because Cinderace is looking really good overall. I just have to watch out for the Mudsdale and the Araquanid. Speaking of Cinderace, I'm actually going to end up leading off with it, just because if he leads off with either of those two, I can just U-turn out. So that's the route I'm going to go with this early game with Cinderace, and as my opponent does lead off with Araquanid, I'm not too shocked about that, so I'm just going to U-turn out. Araquanid doesn't have the best physical defense in the world, so at least I get some solid shit with U-turn there. As he just goes for Liquidation, I'm like, okay, I was expecting Sticky Webs, but this works too. I can Volt out, expecting him to go out into either Virizion, or Kieran, excuse me, as he just stays in. So I was like, okay, he takes that. He's getting chipped down pretty easily. I can go on the Weezing because Weezing takes liquidations pretty well too, as he throws off Mirror Coat. I'm like, whoa, holy shit. I got so scared when that happened. I was like, wow, that threw me off guard. Needing Weezing for the Virizion still, because that looks really scary. I'm going to go on the Gliscopod to take the liquidation. And it takes it like a champ, which is nice. I am going to Leech Life now because, I know Corviknight could switch in, but at least I'll get some health back. But he actually stays in and just takes the hit. And that's good because he's not doing too much to me. Hopefully he doesn't burn me here, which he doesn't, which is nice. I can just liquidation the following turn because it will knock out the Araquanid, and it would do some nice chip to Corviknight if it came in. So 5 turns in, we do knock out the Araquanid. Kyurem comes out. I'm actually going to let him knock me into emergency exit just to get a idea of his set as he crits me. And that crit's really big because I would have lived basically any hit, and having the priority of the Gliscopod against like Virizion and like Gengar would be huge. So losing Pod there really sucked. But it's Pokemon, it happens. We have Savelli Steel in now. I'm going to just parting shot out on this Corviknight here the following turn. It's not too scary. As he doubles into Virizion, that's fine because I get some momentum now, and I have Cinderace in the back. And because Araquanid's gone, his only real switch into this left is the Mudsdale. So he is going to lead off, go into Mudsdale, as I have Flare Blitz, and I get a crit. That's pretty big as well because now this gives me an easier time trying to revenge this thing a little bit later because I got the extra 50% damage on it. So I apologize to Jack about that crit. As he just throws up rocks, I don't really have too much of a way to deal with that. As I'm going to click Will-O-Wisp this turn instead of Hydro Pump, expecting like Virizion or Kyurem to come out as Virizion comes out. And that's good because A, Rotom is back to full basically, and B, that Virizion is not looking like a threat to my team as it was, so Weezing's a little bit useless now. I can basically just sack that off, as I'm going to actually full switch here as he throws up a Reflect, and that also threw me off guard. I wasn't really expecting a Reflect Virizion, as I'm just going to click Defog to get rid of his screen and the rocks on my side. As he clicks Taunt, I'm like, okay. I'm learning this is a very supportive Virizion, which is fine. I wasn't really expecting it because offensive was pretty good against my team, but it happens. As he throws up a Light Screen too, and I'm just going to Strange Steam and get some damage off. And when I did that, I realized that next turn, he could bring out Gengar or Corviknight or whatever and start setting up. So Valley Steel sort of deals with both of them, so that's why I'm going to actually make a switch out, as luckily he does go out into Gengar. And going out into Valley Steel here was such a big turn because I didn't have to take a Shadow Ball to the face as he substitute. And luckily, because I did this calc beforehand, well, not before the battle, before I switched, a Shadow Ball does 20, I think 6% min to a non-bulk Gengar behind the screen, so I knew I could always break a sub. And so he sub Nasty Plot, I learned. He does Curse Body my Shadow Ball, which is really unfortunate because he can still get one more sub up. And unlike Shadow Ball, Flash Cannon does not break substitutes, so I basically am going to have to sack my Valley Steel just to get rid of this Gengar, which is annoying because the disable, it would have happened regardless, I think, but actually no, not really, because I would have had Shadow Ball around still. I die basically here, and it's unfortunate, but it happens, as Gengar is down 22%. Curse Body is a good ability, so whatever. But this thing's not Scarf, so I can just click Third Blitz, and because of that crit earlier, I'm actually able to knock out the Mudsdale here with Third Blitz. I actually think that was a roll too, so this Mudsdale getting very unlucky. I apologize to Jack for that. That's just not fun. But Kyurem comes out. I'm expecting this thing to be Scarf at this point, so and Low Kick doesn't even kill it, so I had to switch on the Weezing. I did mention Weezing was looking pretty useless at this point, so Weezing just gets sacked. That's fine, and at this point I'm looking at it, I'm like, alright, I need to go for game now, because Rhyperior this is the best chance to set up, and if it's Scarf and a Psychic shouldn't two-shot me. So he actually goes down to Gengar to sack it as I click Rock Polish. That's really big, because now I outspeed everything on his team except for the Kyurem, which would be Scarf, so I Rock Polish again, because Shadow Ball wouldn't knock me out, and actually he doubles in the Virizion, which is really good for me, because I have Fire Punch on the set, and I can just knock this thing out. So, turn 25, it is 3-3, it's looking pretty good. And now, basically, I just have to worry about knocking things out. Corviknight comes out as I click Fire Punch. I actually get a crit here, which is kind of big. I apologize to Jack again. This is a very hacksy battle. The reason that's big is because he actually has Bulk Up. I was expecting, like, U-Turn, Defog, Iron Head, Roost, but he's actually the Bulk Up set. So, basically, I just need to spam Fire Punch. I'm going to spam Fire Punch until I get a burn, I think, and then I'm going to go down to Rotom. But I crit him again. And that just sucks so much, because this Corviknight beats my Rhyperior almost every time. And I just crit him twice. I'm sorry, Jack. I don't know what to say. I keep saying I'm sorry, but that's all I know what to say. At this point, the game's kind of over, I think. It's not over, but Rotom can just wall the Kyurem if it locks in the Ice Beam, which is going to be forced to lock itself into. As now Rotom comes in, this thing is pretty low, and I can just spam Thunderbolt or Hydro Pump as Ice Beam comes out, and it's actually Specs. And I was hesitant to say that the entire battle because I actually should have known that, because Specs Psychic crit is the only way Gliscod would have went down, and I didn't know that at the time. That's good because Cinderace just straight up wins the game now instead of having to worry about Rotom versus Kyurem. But still, I should have known that. Maybe I could have played around it a little bit better, but I think my ignorance actually worked out in my favor there because I sent out Rhyperior on the turn he switched out. But here at this point, he tried dropping a Draco to get his differential down and he misses, so that's unfortunate. I Volt Switch because I can just go out in the Cinderace if he doesn't kill me and just knock him out the following turn. And this game is basically over. We Sucker Punch and knock out the Kyurem. And your Northside Noiverns are going to beat Jack 2-0 in a pretty hack-sold game. GG, Jack. That 100% was such an ugly game. There was so much hacks on both sides, but I think the biggest portion of the entire battle was Rhyperior against the Corviknight. Though Corviknight wasn't really a big threat to Rotom or Cinderace in the back, it was more the fact that Rhyperior's cleaning abilities should have been stopped right there, but because I just crit my way through the Corviknight, I was able to beat it down and get the chip on Kyurem that I needed. It's really unfortunate, but it is how Pokemon is. GG, Jack. Again, I'm really glad we fought, and hopefully we are able to face again in the future. I'm 1-1 against him now, which is pretty nice. And we are going to move up to a 3-0 record, so we're off to a really good start in the PTL as well. And I'll let you guys know, after 3 weeks, the GOAT Crusaders are 13-2 in the Sword Division. I know in the Shield Division it's really good too, so it's just, we're doing an absolutely insane job right now. Our team is doing fantastic, and hopefully I can keep my end of the bargain up, because I have been so far. But next week's going to be a really hard week. We go up against Ethan. He is a part of the Rainbow Unicorns. That's going to be really tough because our matchup is so bad. It's so bad in that one, so hopefully we're able to break it down. He has a Grimmsnarl on his team as a new Mon to mention, so if you want to see some Grimmsnarl action, most likely next week you'll be able to see it. But that's going to be next week's battle. That's going to wrap it up for today's video. Thank you guys for watching so much. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If you like Pokemon Draft League content, consider subscribing to the channel. I'm going to head out of here. Have a fantastic day, YouTube.